March 2022. El Salvador woke up to the sound of boots in the streets. Soldiers and police flooded entire neighborhoods. Alleyways that once belonged to the gangs now echoed with orders shouted through megaphones. For decades, this country had been strangled by the violence of MS-13 and Barrio 18. But on this day, the government promised the beginning of their end. Checkpoints sealed whole towns. Nobody could enter and nobody could leave. Soldiers went door to door, demanding ID cards, scanning faces, and lifting shirts to check for tattoos, the permanent marks of gang loyalty. Families huddled inside as armored trucks rolled through the streets. What began as a war on gangs quickly became a massive sweep, unlike anything else Salvador had ever seen. In the first weeks alone, thousands were arrested. Day after day, convoys of buses arrived at police stations filled with handcuffed men, many stripped down to shorts, heads bowed. The government announced record numbers. More than 70,000 people captured in less than 2 years. The scale was staggering. But behind the headlines, stories of mistaken arrests began to emerge. Among the tattooed and the heavily armed, there were also the innocent. Mothers searching outside prisons. Wives holding up documents to prove their husbands had steady jobs. Children waiting at home for parents who would never return. Human rights groups warned of mass detentions without evidence. But the state pressed forward. To many Salvadorans, the cost was worth it. Safety was finally returning to streets where death had once been routine. Later, a former police officer revealed what many suspected, quotas. 1,000 arrests every single day. If the numbers weren't met, officers couldn't go home. To fill the lists, anyone could be taken. A young man walking to school, a worker without papers. In a climate of fear, proving innocence was nearly impossible. Soon, the buses were no longer just taking detainees to police cells. They were headed to something far more permanent. A prison built not just to hold criminals, but to lock away an entire era of violence. The Terrorism Confinement Center, known as shackled. For those who entered, there would be no going back. Families often never heard from them again. This was not just a crackdown. It was a campaign to erase the gangs from the face of El Salvador. But the question still remains, at what cost? In the next part, we step inside the most feared prison in Latin America, where tens of thousands now live out the rest of their lives.